Pedro Acosta is going to Ducati in 2027. Alex Marquez is reportedly set to join KTM. Two riders, two very different destinations, and the gap between those two decisions tells you something uncomfortable about where both manufacturers think they are heading, because KTM's lead non-Acosta rider has 17 points after 3 rounds. Their satellite team is in talks to leave for Honda. And MotoGP's own promoter has used the word Suzuki in the same sentence as KTM's future. Alex Marquez is walking into all of that as their headline signing. So what exactly has he signed up for? And does the rider who surprised everyone at Gresini know what is waiting for him in orange? Let's start with what Alex Marquez actually did in 2025, because the paddock has a habit of moving on before the evidence is properly processed. He finished second in the World Championship, behind his brother, the man widely considered one of the greatest riders in the sport's history. He won 3 Grand Prix. He took 26 podiums from 44 starts. He beat factory riders on satellite machinery. And he did all of this in a year where the expectation was that Mark would dominate and Alex would be somewhere in the mix. The 2025 season was not a fluke. It was a statement. I don't think anyone who watched it closely could argue otherwise. And it was a statement Ducati heard and then chose to ignore. Because when the rider market opened and the question of factory seats came up, the answer was Pedro Acosta. Not Alex Marquez. Acosta is younger. Acosta is the project. Alex Marquez, who had just proved he belonged at the front, was never seriously considered for the ride he had earned. His camp used a specific word afterward. Unloved. That is not hyperbole. That is the most precise description of what Ducati's decision communicated. And I think most people in the paddock know it. They just haven't said it that directly. But let's not reduce this to a story about hurt feelings, because the more interesting question is not why Ducati chose Acosta. It is what that choice forced Alex Marquez to do. With no factory Ducati seat available, and other options closing fast, KTM was the team that came calling, and Alex Marquez said yes. At around €1 million a year, reportedly more than double his Gresini salary, he will become the lead factory KTM rider for 2027 alongside Maverick Vinales. On paper, it looks like the factory opportunity he was denied at Ducati. I think that framing is exactly what KTM wants the paddock to repeat. But the paper is hiding a lot. And what is it hiding exactly? And this is where it changes. Because the KTM that Alex Marquez is joining is not the KTM that produced Pedro Acosta. It is the KTM that emerged from a financial crisis in late 2024 that has been operating under the shadow of that crisis ever since. And that is currently watching 3 of its 4 riders struggle, while the one talent they built their project around walks out the door to join the competition. Pit Byra said it himself after Austin. KTM are not where we want to be, with Brad Binder, Enea Bastianini, and Maverick Vinales. 1 sentence, 3 names. The entire non-Acosta roster. Binder has 17 points after 3 rounds, 12th in the championship. Bastianini has 22, though most came from 1 Austin weekend after 2 near-invisible rounds. Vinales missed Austin entirely after a shoulder screw came loose and caused tendon damage. Byra described the team being unable to explain what was happening or why. These are not riders in a rough patch. These are riders who cannot make the RC16 do what Acosta makes it do. And Acosta is the data point that proves the bike can work. Without him, the question becomes harder to answer. And Acosta, the only one consistently making the RC16 work, is leaving. Let's be clear about what that actually means for KTM. The man who papered over their weaknesses every weekend is gone, and into that gap walks Alex Marquez, who has never ridden a KTM, has spent his career on Ducati machinery, and is being asked to step in as the face of a project that could not keep the rider who made it look credible. And, oh yeah, Tech3 might be leaving too. KTM's only satellite team, the structure that gives them 4 bikes on the grid and the data those bikes generate, is in active talks with Honda for 2027. Guenther Steiner, Tech3's new owner, told journalists he needs certain guarantees from KTM before renewing. Honda is offering 2 bikes at no cost. And MotoGP's promoter, SEG, formerly Dorna, has said explicitly that Tech3 moving to Honda is worrying because it could push KTM toward becoming the next Suzuki. Not a journalist's speculation. The people who run the championship saying it in print. The Suzuki comparison is not dramatic framing. It is the language the paddock is now using. Let's be honest about what the Suzuki parallel actually means. Suzuki left at the end of 2022. They were competitive. They had a world champion in Joan Mir. They simply decided the cost no longer justified the return. And one day, with almost no warning, they were gone. KTM are in a different position. They are committed to the 2027 regulations. They have a new engine on the bench, and Bajaj's investment has stabilised the company. But they have no contract with MotoGP beyond 2026. They are still negotiating the next collective agreement with the promoter. And the combination of losing Acosta, potentially losing Tech3, and carrying a roster only one rider can unlock is not the profile of a manufacturer building towards something. It is the profile of a manufacturer managing a decline. And when does a decline become a departure? So let's look at what Alex Marquez is actually walking into. People will frame this as an opportunity. The new regulations reset everything. KTM has been early with their 850 cubic centimetre development. The technical revolution levels the field. And there is genuine logic to all of that. The 2027 reset is real, and any manufacturer could emerge stronger. But this was never really a story about regulations. I think it is a story about what happens when a rider who deserved more gets positioned as the solution to a problem that was never his to solve. And I don't think Alex Marquez fully understands the weight of what he is carrying into that garage. KTM do not have an Alex Marquez problem. They have a structural problem. One talent, an uncertain satellite future, a financial shadow, and a regulation window that is arriving exactly when their foundations are at their most fragile. Alex Marquez proved at Gresini that he was better than anyone had given him credit for. I don't think that stops being true at KTM, but the question that matters going into 2027 is not whether Alex Marquez is good enough. It is whether KTM is stable enough to give that ability somewhere to go. And right now, based on everything the paddock is saying, including the people who run the championship, the answer to that question is not clear. Is this a manufacturer building towards something real? Or is Alex Marquez the last credible name on a project that is already winding down? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.